Another Wednesday, folks. Another Dynamite preview show. I've legitimately, in the last 20 minutes or so here, discovered that this show may be slightly different in tone than I intended. We'll let the chat guide things as usual. Yeah, this is obviously a little different. I changed the thumbnail because I saw someone mention it. Someone messaged me about it. I understand the situation. Just to give you guys a little bit of my own kind of perspective is the wrong word, but I think Bick said it, and I think I can kind of piggyback along on what he said with the idea that it is not news to me that Brian Kendrick is a nut and is a conspiracy theorist and all of the above, and a lot of that was used maybe a decade ago as kind of like a fun bit, like Brian and his silly conspiracies. But also like Bix, it was news to me some of the just quite how extreme some of those conspiracies were. So anyone that feels a certain way about Brian Kendrick being on the show tonight, I get it. I would love to say that it would be cool if he put a statement out and said he no longer believes those things. But to be quite frank, folks, I'm not particularly confident that would be true. Kendrick has been on some pretty big podcasts on conspiracies in the last couple of years. So, yeah. So, for those of you looking for update, you go Bix's Twitter. He's got a whole lot on it. I missed all of it until literally about 20 minutes ago. Yeah. So, I'm not going to tell anyone how to feel about it. I completely understand it. Do you think there's any chance he gets pulled off the show tonight? I don't. Brian Kendrick is beloved in professional wrestling, and there has never been any pushback on it before, and I assume that will continue. And the people in power will wait for it to go away, as is tradition. Yeah. I think there is truth to kind of the idea. I think there is truth to the idea that the society has changed and so on and so forth. However, that would be a little bit generous to some of the things that Brian Kendrick said, which I don't think were acceptable 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, anywhere in between. So, again, I wanted to lead with that because I know that in this landscape, you guys are probably, you probably see a lot of different ways to handle these things. I don't know what the right way is, especially when I'm doing a solo show, and I have very solitary kind of perspective. But I wanted to just mention that at the very least, and we'll talk about what you guys want to talk about. But because I know that some people just kind of, I don't want to say look away, but one second, folks. Yeah, a lot of people didn't know, and that's the thing. That's what I wanted to make clear when I said what I said. There is me saying that I was aware of the kind of conspiracy nut identity does not mean you guys are supposed to be, or or anyone's supposed to be, right? So, it's important that if you knew all of this, you don't just get mad that other people are bringing it up now. It's definitely news to a lot of people. It isn't a big story before today. So, people are learning this shit in real time. People are learning how extreme it is, all of the above. So don't tell anyone how they're supposed to feel about this just because you feel a certain way about it. I think would be the key. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a good chance he's one and done for sure. But I don't think this would be the reason they did that. I saw your comment, Aiden. I actually understand what you're saying. I think, look, it's important to kind of talk about this stuff because it isn't, in wrestling, it's in anything, but in this landscape, you see people kind of, we put everyone in the same bracket, right? So it's like, well, this guy doesn't vote the way that I do. Boom, he's in that spot there. And, I think we've all made those little references on the late night Grin at times, but there's a difference between someone that has some views that I don't fuck with and someone that's said some shit that he said. I get it. I understand it. And So if you feel a certain way about him being on, that makes perfect sense to me. I ain't telling anyone how they should feel. I have no real way to transition here, do I? I'm going to let the chat figure out. Joe, do you think, thank you, Bud Ryan. Joe, do you think we get a finish to MJF versus Punk? Or do they set up a rematch on pay-per-view with a clean finish? I did think about the countdown, Jason. It felt too comedic. I'm sorry. Okay, let me think about this. I think that whoever said about him wrestling Hangman kind of intrigued me. The idea that Wardlow and MJF are in the are doing the something together at the pay-per-view, whether it be the ladder match, whatever it may be. So, but my gut feeling is it will be a finish that sets up a pay-per-view rematch. Now, what that finish is, I don't know. I think it's really hard to write off or dismiss the chance of an MJF win here in Chicago. That's the kind of thing that you could give a heel that they could live off for a damn lifetime and more. So there's a lot to be said for that. I'm leaning towards Punk. However, it's the ideal money match in the sense that it's an ideal money match in the sense that you just do not know what that finish is going to look like, and that's half of the. More frankly, it's more than half of the hook for me. I'm sorry, I'm trying to read the chat here. MJF is the next champ, nailed on. Be interesting, right? I know there's a lot of talk about Adam Cole. I know there's a lot of talk about. I've made a lot about Punk. No one else is, but me. Moxley, I guess, is in the conversation just based on the fact that he's such a big star and the way he lost the belt. I'm sticking to my guns on Punk. I ain't backing off of that anytime soon. I don't think they can build any interest in a rematch. They've peaked the angle. It would have to be a stip, right? I think you'd have to be looking at like maybe a cage, or you'd have to do something big time too. I actually don't disagree with that at all. God damn. It's a testament to the fantastic business they've done. You have no clue how this will go. It's spot on. It's been very effective. There's been times where I've rolled my eyes at it. Some of the promos have gone long, and a lot of it stylistically, to be frank, is inspired by an era that isn't really my thing, just to be transparent. But it's worked a treat, and the audience is way into it. So it's a big match tonight. I'm intrigued by the rating it does. I'm intrigued by the heat in the building. This should be one where people pop at the opening bell, assuming everyone gets to the building, because from what I can gather, it's been quite the day in Chicago. So, yeah, this is a big one. Punk beat MJF at Revolution, but Wardlow wins the face Revolution, gives it to MJF. MJF versus Sammy. The face of the Revolution thing is real, right? Because, we know that it's been referenced twice on TV, I think, maybe 3 times. So that makes you think that they're not doing MJF and Wardlow at Revolution. That would suggest that MJF's I think this Punk thing's going to extend. I don't know if they're ready to do the Hangman match yet with Punk. I have to admit. I'm a little bit behind here, folks, so I'll be catching up. Punk is next champ 100%. My God. A lot of extremes here. Do we get any real debuts tonight with Free Agent Day? I don't think so. I know we pitched on Monday that Athena was the most likely, and she's on Twitch in like 2 hours. So, I would say that, that pretty writes unless she just runs like a pre-tape on Twitch. I don't know. So I would say no. I don't even know what the most likely candidate is. Chat, you can suggest and I'll try and figure it out. Come on now, please. I'm looking forward to the tag match myself. Yeah, me too. That's a big match. I'm wondering if they're going to close the show with that. I really am. Cage could work. If MJF only wins for interference, absolutely, you'd have to do like an old school angle with that. Keith Lee in AEW, he was a legit star in late 2019. There is a lot of scuttlebutt, indeed, that is not going to be the destination of Keith Lee. Now, those of you that know me know that I don't know anything. I am not a scoopster. And now more than ever, I don't even know Scoopsters. But there is a lot of scuttlebutt that Keith Lee is not going to be all elite. Now, me saying that on the air, especially not behind paywall, means that he'll probably debut tonight. So I look forward to that. Bob has explained that he has been fined too much to refund anyone's dollar for the immediate future. That's fair. I can confirm he has been fined that much. That's not a lie. Being in the ladder match doesn't match MJF's character in the slightest. It's too soon to run Wardlow. MJF and Punk needs to have a rematch. I agree with this, yeah, because not only did it not match his character, but like this specific case, he said Wardlow's going to do that for him, right? He can do that bidding for him. So unless MJF's off, it feels like they're running it back. Yeah, I've seen some folks talking about this. Hopefully they get, hopefully enough folks are in there. I know they sold like 5,000, so caught a follow from Bob today. Very bad. Make sure you quote to everything he says with bootlicker. Does Cabana get involved? I'll be honest, and this is just me. I don't know how compelling that actually is. I know why people are obsessed with it. I get it, and it's a fair question, Josh. I don't know if that's really the play for AEW. I have to be totally honest about it. I mean, I would react to it, and Chicago would, but as a television product, I just don't know if Colt is like. I don't know. It's a weird one. I can never figure out how much the audience is like way locked into that stuff and isn't, to be honest. Big Snow could hurt the crowd. I thought you said Big Show, and it popped me huge. She streams as she's debuting. She does like a 40-minute speech and then stands up and walks through the curtain. That would be tremendous. I think Wardlow is actually going to win the TNT title at St. Patrick's Day Slam. And then MJF's going to demand the belts. Here's my question, guys. Because I like this, but here's my question. If Wardlow is going to be the next TNT champ, wouldn't you guys have had Cody hold it? Because it feels like him doing the power bombs on Cody would be perfect for getting him cheered in a way that isn't an obvious babyface turn, but allows people to cheer him, right? That's the only thing with that. It's like, I would have probably left it on Code Man if that was the case. Yes, this would rule. If Keith is NWO or Impact, I have to watch those programs. Filth. Impact is quite good now. If you don't want to watch it, I get it, because most people don't watch it, apparently. But I would not pair those two, because one of them is very, very, very bad. I hope we get more focus on the tag division. It's fallen off a lot, and I think it's their greatest asset. I think it's struggled to kind of adjust to not having the Young Bucks as the centerpiece, man. It's very different dynamic there, Where does the scuttlebutt say Keith Lee is going? I don't know. My my reading of the scuttlebutt isn't good enough to know the answer. There's a lot of people that are like, AEW, I don't know. And like you guys know, I think that's probably enough for you guys to know. When it's a big free agent, I assume they're going to AEW every time, because frankly, they're just the rest of them are such a different scenario, right? So I always assume they're going to AEW. What we got here? MJF and Punk run the dog collar gimmick, seeing as though they're both Rod Piper loving dogs. That's good shit. That's pretty interesting, because that match has some kind of cachet in AEW too, because obviously the last one was incredible. As much as the fact it was a great match feels kind of secondary. Do you run MJF Hangman at Revolution and he sends Wardlow to look at the TNT title? Maybe, yeah, you could do that. But then what does Punk do, right? Colt says he's not there. Thank you, Leland. Thank you, JJ. He's in Australia, but as Matthew said. I'm sorry, I'm trying to catch up. Good evening, Cody. Cabana vs. Punk will be massive there, but it may be. I don't know. I'm sorry. Sometimes this stuff's lost on me. Not selling out a Punk match in Chicago seems bad. They run it a lot, man, and I'd imagine the snow hasn't helped. But I do get your, I do get the general point. Cody's a free agent. Fair. Code Man ain't giving him Wardlow's win back. Scorpio's next for Sammy, it feels like, right? Look at this. These comments one after the other. This rules. Stop dunking on Impact. It's not TNA 2014 or current NWA bootlickers. Following comment. Impact good? How's that boot taste, Joseph? I respect that, man. Keith, fair. Keith Lee is, yeah, that's fair. He signed to BDW, guys. Sign up, latenightgrin.com, our patron, book the territory with us. Does Shane go to AEW? I fucking hope not. No, of course not. There's no way he's going there. He'll just go and manage golfers again or whatever he did before. Swerve is one where the scuttlebutt is in the other direction where everyone just kind of goes, well, yeah, obviously. Him and Athena both, actually. Again, I know nothing. I'm just, Cody costs Punk. That'd be interesting for sure. Set the stage for that with his promo. That could be a Revolution match, and you could do MJF and Hangman, I guess, right? Law question. Sorry to hear that. Black hinted at adding a third member. Julia Pack or someone else is most likely. Buddy Matthews. Come on, Josh. You knew it again. Probably Julia. Hey, it looks like Malachi and Brody want to be a team in AEW. Obviously, they are in PWG, right? So that makes sense. Where is the Team Taz Dante stuff even going anymore? Is Darius coming back? I think it may just end at some point, quietly, to be quite frank. But Darius is, they're expecting him back in the next month, 2 months. Shayna, I don't think we have to worry about Shayna, Matt, guys. This is an interesting talking point, right? Like the idea that maybe this is more than just a match, and like Brian is more directly involved than him just watching or being on commentary. I don't know. It's an interesting thought. I kind of think it would be insane for them just to do like a 12-minute match, but I also have been on an island with that stuff before. So I mean, I think they can easily do a lot, kind of short, but then it gets to the question of what's the point unless you do that with Brian. So I don't know. I didn't really answer that, right? Just so I don't know a lot. I'm bringing Shane for a one-off. He's done, guys. He's a clown. Punk has talked about wanting to feud with Cody. There you go. Athena did not. I don't think she dunked on Impact so much as she actively blocked about. I think it was. I don't want to say the number. A handful of accounts that were saying you should go to Impact. She blocked, which popped me tremendously. The Road 2 was very good. Ricky Stark's promo was immaculate. What a talent he is. Yeah, I think this is Taz's way of just kind of talking around the angle, JJ, to be honest. Who do you see as the next AEW Tag Team Champs, and why is it the House of Black? It's actually the Kings of the Black Throne, Ricardo. But yes, that's who I do think are the next Tag Champs, for sure. Makes a lot of sense. I think you need a heel champion here somewhere because I just, you don't want to switch again from babyface to babyface, right? So I'd imagine they're next. It could also be Red Dragon. I'd assume they're behind Kings of the Black Throne. That's because they have other stuff they can do, right? I don't know if this is true. I don't know if that's trademarked by Fightful Kirby, but I appreciate the fault. I kind of stopped doing the Chubby Chief stuff when I'd stopped enjoying the Tribal Chief stuff. It felt bad. I get Leo not being under AEW contract being hurt right now, but I really wish they'd pay off the story because the matches were great. Absolutely. It just lost its way. I think it's pretty clear that some, things kind of got complicated there. And it's a shame. I think it had a lot of potential. And it's hard not to. I know it's kind of separate, but it's part of the overarching angle with Dante. The original tag match they did with Sydal and Moriarty, man, that felt like a cruiserweight match on Nitro, which is a compliment. Like, it was awesome. Shame things didn't work out. Killer Cross Cody, find yourself a mirror and have a good look at yourself there, pal. That's disgusting. Killer Cross thing could actually happen, and that'll be an interesting one. Ricky's incredible, top 5 charismatic guy in the whole fleet. I don't disagree with that, man. He's something else. He's very, very special talent. He has like a polish to him because it didn't come immediately to him. It took him a while. NXT tomorrow. I watched the Roddy match. It was good. I didn't watch anything else, but that was good. Bits aside, I hope Kendrick's a one-off. They're very bloated, especially if they're signing a few more. Yeah, I mean, this is a constant topic, right? It's kind of... It's difficult because it's... I mean, Kendrick's obviously a unique case, but like, you talk about someone like Tony Nese. I don't want to sit there and say I don't want Tony Nese to get that job. I mean, good for him. He deserves it, right? He works hard. He has good matches. He's a pro, but it's damn hard when you got that many bodies. It's definitely a thing at this point, especially because I don't think we can any of us can be confident the releases are slowing down over there. So this is disgusting. JJ, you're lashing out a lot regarding Impact Wrestling. Please calm it down. Very spiteful on Discord recently. By the way, if you want to join Discord, DM me on Twitter. Shane apparently is out of the picture for us, so that's why people are saying they're not just like making it up. Everyone's reporting he's out of the scene because stuff happened at the Rumble. That's why everyone's talking about. I did not see Lee Murray's promo. I did a watch along for that show, but I had it on mute, so I did not see it. I was told it was good. They did that with him before when he wrestled Nick Comoroto. He did the main event match and then did a promo, which popped me. Yeah, I think there's a lot of moving pieces with that Paul London relationship based on some stuff. Is Hook turning face? I think he just is a face, man. I know it's kind of weird because Team Taz, but I think he's been a face basically since he started wrestling. Hang on a second. Hang on a second, folks. Confirm shoot. Executive producing this show. If Cross can actually run his creative to a large extent, it could be interesting. Maybe. I just don't think AEW's like, it feels like he needs to go be a project somewhere. MLW is actually a fine idea. I don't know. I mean, in terms of pay, it probably isn't too fun. But yeah. I've never been a big fan of old Cross. I know everyone loves surprise debuts, but I kind of wish some people would just be announced with Owens so that we can look forward to them. Yeah, I agree. The Owen thing is going to be fascinating because, like, they're going to have to do. If it's going to just be like, you know, a major blockbuster tournament, you're going to have to beat an awful lot of. You'd have to beat guys that usually don't get beat on TV. I'm sorry, I'm laughing at saying this in the chat here. Listen to this. Cross seems to be aiming for half lore, half gritty movie, anti-hero dorkiness. Doesn't really fit the House of Black. He's trying very hard to be cool. Wait, are we saying the House of Black don't want to be cool? Seems bad. Coming off PWG, do you expect guys to level up soon in his position? Like, I don't think he can go much higher for now, man. I get the fault, but good lord. They've featured him consistently. Akash, very bad timing as always, but I appreciate it. What, you guys just burying Impact Wrestling now? Okay, let me scroll at the bottom here. MLW, yes. So I will say, to MLW's credit, the last episode of Azteca was the best. Which, if you've been watching the show, PW Outsider, as it seems your comments suggest, you'll know that is not a high bar by any means, right? Pretty bad show up to that point. I'm hoping these Blood and Thunder tapings have better results. There were some good reports about a couple matches. I'll be watching them because I review them, but you're certainly not wrong. The Azteca stuff was bad. It was literally, to be fair, Demon Grin, it wasn't quite as aggressive. It was just overlay, pal. Which fair. No, Paul London it appears based on his Twitter likes that Bix tweeted a screenshot of that he agrees with the general assessment of Brian Kendrick's opinions, which is interesting for a range of reasons. I saw that Duke's co-signed my suggestion that JJ had been filth in the Discord. Glad to see that because it's factual. What is the deal with Juice Robinson? Isn't his contract up? Because he's an interesting one, especially with Tony Storm obviously being in free agency here soon. Cross would make them the House of Whack. Oh my God, Cody's going to be here all week. Sorry to hear that. Me too. I'm glad we agree on something, Demon Grin. Yeah, he would definitely, him and Colt Bauer would be an interesting dynamic. Sure, it'd be fine. End of Jan, he was up. Sean had him as a free agent. Wow, that's interesting. See, he's a guy that, because of the way that things have worked out over this last couple of years, he doesn't feel like a really exciting. He doesn't feel like a really exciting entry into that landscape because so much has changed, right? Firstly, there's all these releases. So there's 101, free agents every other week, and New Japan's product has cooled off so much. I don't think the place for him is in AEW by any means, but he's a really interesting candidate to be like one of your upper guys here for one of the other national promotions, especially because those promotions could easily let him work a very much, I don't want to say full time, but pretty close to its schedule with New Japan. So that's interesting. I know that he was going to be a focus for Ring of Honor when they had the Lifeblood faction, right? They did that deal where after Final Battle, that was like one of their directions. And it didn't work out at all. But he can really talk. I don't know what his ceiling is, but it's interesting to ponder. I think his best bet is a mainstay of Strong if he wants to come back to the US. Not so sure Juice has a ton more potential. I just think he could be a guy that is actually a better fit on a product that he hasn't been on. And it's not a knock of his work in New Japan because he had a hell of a run in New Japan. He's still having that run, I guess, right? But he can talk. I could see him connecting with people in a different setting. Again, that doesn't mean it would be an AEW. I think it'd be kind of redundant. But there's a couple of promotions out there that I don't need to name and feel upsetting someone in the chat that are pushing guys that, like, if they had Juice on paper, maybe they could do something with him. There's a lot of reports of this. Should we find JJ, guys? Feels like we should find JJ. The NWA is an obvious one because he's would be a great promo on the studio show. I wasn't thinking of the NWA because their talent pool suggests they just don't pay well enough to get anyone of that caliber. But Impact, who he's worked for pretty consistently over the last year, I think, right? Doing the tag stuff, not consistently, but he came in quite a bit with Finn Juice. If you had a commitment on him, like, I think he'd be a better top guy than, everyone else that's top guy in Impact at this point. But that's a whole other topic because there's guys that we should, someone like Chris Bay has lost twice on TV as of late. It's a weird situation over the main event scene. It's the show's biggest flaw right now. Impact is only ever going to be on Access TV, so recommending people go there feels like you're sending people to poke. But, like, unfortunately, brother, the alternatives are not, not everyone can go to AEW. And if you're not in AEW and you're not in New York, where does one go? I agree with your general sentiment. The ceiling in terms of exposure isn't great, but, like, are we really saying we'd rather send someone to MLW or NWA? It's tough. I'd be very curious about promo exchange between Juice and Lockhart. My God. Good Lord. I don't know what the situation with Darius. I think Darius just is trying to get his name out there. And the NWA product is ice cold. But if you look at, like, just YouTube numbers, they still, they still have more exposure than what someone like a Darius Lockhart is used to. It ain't great, and I'm sure he would rather not work for Billy Corgan. But, you have to obviously climb that ladder in some way, right? It's just difficult. It's kind of nuts. He's not elsewhere, but he's not. So you have to do what you got to do. Who should be on top in Impact from their current roster? I'd say a top tier of Josh Alexander, Chris Bay. I would say it was a time where I would have said Ace Austin, but I waver some on him. I'm trying to think of a good core here, because a lot of their guys are like they're really good role players. It's a promotion of good role players. But Josh is definitely a guy that could bring up some of those X Division dudes. But whether you want that to be a true main event scene, I don't know. I mean, I think Jonah's actually been pretty good there, and you guys know I've never been a fan. I think he's been pretty good. There's something with Morrissey that I appreciate them trying to tap into. I don't know what the actual upside is for that promotion of scale, a promotion of that scale anyway. But the truth is that Josh is the only one I say with confidence, because I feel like Chris Bay, there's a reason for that, which is that they assume he's not going to be there for long. It must be my guess at this point. AEW TV, yeah, and I agree. Look, I mean, if you can float around TV, then you can. If you can float around the independents, then that's what you do. But just financially, I don't know what the options are. It's weird that they shy away from smaller guys for the Impact big belt apart from Swan, who talented is just like, oh yeah, absolutely. Jake Summing is a good one. There you go. Thank you, Brees. I wonder when Jarrett, Comrade, Freddie Prince, Jericho, Codeman, Regal, and Shane O'Mac's promotion starts up. Darius sticks out so much that I think strangely could fit for a mover. I agree. And he can talk, and they can cut promos. If Darius can cut promos, it helps him, right? This is unfair, Evan. Jake Summing won last week. I believe you were just owned. Yeah, Ace Austin, like he's good. I don't know. I don't know if he's a top guy. I mean, for that promotion, sure he is, but I don't. Speedball and Laredo Kids, these are all guys that I don't. I mean, they would definitely be better options than the folks that are there, but I'm not going to pretend they're like home runs for me as a top guy. I can't. Jacob Fatu would be a big one. I don't know what the deal is with him. A lot of moving pieces. Isn't Jake Summing's contract up soon? It might be. Thank you, JJ, for confirming that. I just owned Evan. Yeah, Speedball's great. I just I don't know, man. It's difficult for me to say that I think he's that role. I think his best fit is probably as like the babyface ace of an X Division. That kind of feels like the perfect fit for Speedball. You can rotate him up, but like as a character, I don't know if you're going to get enough out of him, especially how they do TV. Joseph, I have a genuine question. I hope all of these questions are genuine. AV8200. When Jericho's contract comes up in AEW, would you re-sign him? I think you have to. I think you owe him a lot. I think he'll have a job there as long as he wants one. But you'd certainly have to you'd have to come to a conclusion on what that role is. I think this should be the last year that he's featured as he has been, in terms of pay-per-view programs. He's obviously going to work Kingston here at this next one if Eddie can, which we assume he can, which I think will be good. And I think we'll actually give Jericho a little bit of juice and a little bit of new life. I don't think you can throw. Look, I understand all of the stuff that comes with a Chris Jericho, but I don't think you can just throw Chris out in the cold. Dude did a lot. It is what it is. I think he'll stay around as long as he wants to. Whether that'll be good for the product, that's the balance you need to find, right? That's the challenge. Doesn't Dark get better numbers than the NWA? Absolutely, it does. It gets a lot more, but you have to get signed to AEW first, right? Yes. Things are changing, Evan. Fleet preview shows turned into Impact landscape talk. Is that a good or bad thing? Seems bad. Seems bad. Assuming Yasson is a heel character, he's just utterly lost as a face these days. Jericho. Yes. Yeah, I agree. I think we've talked about this a lot, and I don't want to bore anyone, but him as a heel against Eddie, I think if he can't kind of get something out of that, it probably is time. And I think Chris is aware of that. I don't think he'd be offended by what I just said. This is a big one for him. It means a lot to him. I think he's pretty excited about it. So I would. I'm gonna. I have a lot of optimism. I actually think the story's pretty good too. So yeah, heel manager would be an interesting role for sure. I wonder if he would be able to do it without just chewing up the scenery. I really don't know. I mean, I remember when he first did commentary, and we was all like, "Wow, he could do this forever." And then he did commentary, and it was like, "Well, maybe not." Jericho Storm. Sorry to hear Lance Storm wrestling on TV. That's a bit. People will appreciate that bit. Some people. Confirmed Shoe gets very mad at me about my Lance Storm slander. Despite his baggage, all the wrestlers seem to adore Jericho. Factual. It's very complicated, man. I mean, it's it's a workplace, right? At the end of the day, Jericho and Sammy have an awesome program one day. If Chris is aware of his limitations in said matchup, I would agree. However, if he does the thing that he has done in previous years, where he tries to have a 1997 WCW Nitro match with Sammy Guevara, you get what you get, I suppose. Ruby Soho and Nyla Rose is the women's match tonight. A very interesting one in terms of booking because you don't want to beat Nyla too often on TV, but it certainly feels like you don't want to beat Ruby again. So that'll be an intriguing one. Hopefully they can have a better match than they had last time. I thought last time was fine, but I thought we could have been a lot better. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Are they doing a tag team casino royale this year? I would assume so, yeah. Do you think they give Wardlow another squash? They have only announced 4 matches. I mean, we're a couple hours away here, so that's probably the leading candidate, yeah. I would really pop if they give Hobbs one of those, but you get what you get, I suppose. He would do great in a trios where he could come in and do spots. For sure, that's the thing, right? There's a lot of different roles. You just need to find the right one for him. Didn't realise so relatively little was announced for Dynamite tonight. 4 matches, neither segments, lots of room for surprises. That's interesting. It would be fitting if today was the day where many wrestlers entered free agency, wouldn't it? Interesting. Connor's fired up. He says, "Did I miss the Shane O'Mac discourse?" And then he said JK, which is, I believe, the kid's way of saying that he was just kidding. Yes, we fantasy booked Shane McMahon in AEW extensively. Definitely something that I would like to see happen and won't make me hate wrestling. Very excited. Hopefully it's a 4-on-1 handicap. Speaking of Impact, they did a thing last week where W. Morrissey beat like 8 guys in one match. Popped me tremendously. I'm going to be honest, it did pop me. I don't know if you're saying this, Joe, is like you expect it, you want it, or you fear it. I don't need them doing wrestling for 45 minutes. Or I guess with entrances, it'd still be pretty long. I think 20 will be just about fine for those. Not the match, the segment as a whole. That would be interesting. The rating on that, and you guys know I'm not like a huge ratings. I don't know anything about it, but that would be something to see, wouldn't it? Keith Lee. Keith Lee thing will be interesting, definitely. Jericho gets back to being a full heel by just acknowledging everything Eddie says about him in the inner circle. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then he can just be a real dick to Eddie Kingston. And everything he says will have some juice to it because it'll be true. You know, what have you actually achieved? You haven't won anything. You haven't won a belt here. Your biggest prize was winning something in Shikara. You know, what does that mean? Which fair. Yeah, legitimately, like, Kingston broke in when, like, Chris Jericho was the Undisputed Champ. They're very different careers. Chris can certainly use that in his promos. Very excited. There are multiple matches on the show that I have no idea of the outcome. That is a very good thing. I agree, Josh. I think if we're being fair, I think it's, not a stretch to say that's kind of a novel thing for Dynamite. It's kind of rare, right? So, big fan of that. I agree. Imagine Shane bought the WCW license from WWE as a pop, and then revived it with Buddy Matthews as the big gold champ. Wow, that sounds like TEW, doesn't it? That would be so inside baseball in the sense that like him and Raven were like really tight when he was Scotty Polo. Johnny, right? Scotty the Body, Scotty Flamingo, Johnny Polo. Do we still think Briscoes are coming? I'm on the verge of writing them off. See, the problem with the Briscoes is the problem with the Briscoes is the way they're doing their promos. You would just assume that at some point they are going to make the attack on FTR. I do not know if you can. I mean, you can. It doesn't matter, right? But like the idea of it just being FTR go to their house again, it's like, well, the whole point is FTR said we showed up, we punched you guys in the face. Now what? So they're still cutting promos in a way that makes you think it's an AEW angle. But there is also certainly an increasing element that it feels like they're trying to work this into. They're trying to shoot this into a work, so to speak, in the sense that they're trying to talk this into being such a big deal that Tony Khan has no choice but to sign them. I don't know. The Twitter promos are great, but at some point you have to follow up, right? It's interesting. I'm with you. I think I'm also on the verge of writing them off. Absolutely. I think it's a very fair stance to take at this point. It's been a long time. I mean, they shot that angle 6 weeks ago at the final bell. If Jericho turns, that's pretty much the end of the inner circle. Thankfully, Hager is being cycled out. Sammy and BMP are faces, but have no connective tissue with each other. Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, thankfully. That's not a null. They had a serious role to play initially, but you get what you get, you know? Oh, God. And then Quack would do like an 8-minute soliloquy on YouTube about it. That's the best comment of the day, Jason. Good shit. Shane could always start Raw Underground again. Fair. Shane might try to do some sort of work shoot kind of promotion. Will be a massive. I think he actually. I'll be honest. To piggyback off this, the most likely thing in terms of him doing like a promotion is actually probably an MMA league that's like really kind of weird and shitty for a couple months, and then he gives it up. I don't think he'd do anything interesting, but I could see him doing something in MMA and doing, you know, now an actual work shoot promotion would be hilarious, but I think unlikely, unfortunately. Imagine Shane doing like a press conference with John Gresham, and he's like 3 foot taller than him. It would be, you know, they have like a banner. Shooters shoot, first main event, Shane O'Mac and Jonathan Gresham. Shane shoot O'Mac, options. Does the tag casino have a Joker? I don't think so. Briscoes could be there otherwise. I don't know. Biff. Yeah, Biff and Martin Stone could be interesting. We're going to have to wait until final battle for our FTR Briscoes. So, yeah, Supercard. Yeah, there you go. Supercard feels kind of likely if it is an AEW. Do we have a good guess at this Dream TK signing? Jeff Hardy? What else I was saying? That's what that'd be my guess, but I don't know. It's a good question. I'd forgotten about that. I think this is also fair. It was way too good of an angle for me to believe they didn't already have a deal in place. Here's one thing to note, folks. And this is a factor, I would say. Dalton Castle tweeted like 3 a couple of days ago here, maybe yesterday. There could be a chance that their contracts, like there was a particular date for some guys, being the end of January. So that could be the reason. Now that would be weird because we've seen the precedent with a Jay Lethal asking out and getting out. So I don't know, but that's just something to think about. I hope TK's dream free agent is just the code, man. God bless. Shane will buy a bare knuckle league. There you go. There, or this works too. What weird Russian MMA leagues where they do wild shit like tags. Dude, some of that stuff's incredible, man. Have you seen like pillow fighting is on Fight TV now? Pop me huge. Shane McMahon presents Terminus After Dark. Pop. There you go. Pillow fighting. There you go. Jason was ahead of me on that. Biff deserves better than being lumped with Stone. Yeah. That's probably fair. I mean, the problem is obviously as much as we all love him, what is Biff's ceiling in an AEW, right? Probably is in a tag of some kind. Big Dave said they were free. There you go. I don't know. Strange situation, must be said. The last outlaw is the dream signing. So someone tweeted earlier, well, who does Shane wrestle at Bloodsport? Could you imagine? Seriously, could you imagine how funny that shit would be? Hey Joseph, sorry I was late. That's fine, Christian. I'll find you accordingly. Thanks for being honest. Important question: is Bob debuting in Dynamite tonight? Look, here's the thing about that, guys. If Bob was debuting, I couldn't tell you that Bob was debuting, right? But then, with that in mind, when I tell you that Bob isn't debuting, it must be very difficult for you to take my word for it, considering all the evidence that suggests that Bob will be a central figure in the finish of CM Punk versus MJF. For example, CM Punk using Bob's famed tweets of him being at the airport. Interesting, right? Almost like he's on Punk's radar. If there's a guy in the world that physically can match up to Wardlow, look at the shortlist. Bob O'Neill. Chicago. Okay, that's doable for Bob, right? Maybe, it's snowing, so it's a little bit tougher, but still, that wasn't in the plans a couple of weeks ago. There's a lot of moving pieces here, and I think I get why there's no point. There's no point me saying he's not going to be there because you guys, you assume already. I'll just say, just keep your eye out, left corner of the screen. 27th minute. Keep your eye out. Shane and Josh Barnett, Shane Mox. Marina Shafir just beats the shit out of Shane on WrestleMania weekend. She's awesome, man. You look like they got a house today. Someone in Discord said that too. God bless. Marina Shafir and Rod Strong. Shane O'Mac versus Minoru Suzuki. Oh, God bless. What song would Bob come out to? No comment. Maybe the Toby Keith one that I upset him about yesterday. The thing about ceilings is we aren't sure until they actually are in AEW and if they get a push to get over. For sure, it's just like with Biff, it's hard to get a read. I think I love Biff, but it is what it is. Biff's spot in AEW is one TNT title match on Rampage and then being sent to the YouTube shows forever, which popped me tremendously. Agreed with all of that, frankly. The match on Rampage with Raw. And then, in addition, those YouTube matches would be a blast because he's like one of the best short match guys. That match you have with Drew on NXT TV is an all-timer, man. Go seek that one out. That's special. Bob needs to sing, by the way. I just remember that. They just recreate the Danhausen debut with dragging the chair bass Bobby. Oh. That's good stuff. Good brother, if you're on Twitter, DM me there. If you're on Patreon, DM me there. I'll get you the Discord thing. Bob comes out to the national anthem. Amazing. It's not going to end well, this bit, guys, but I'm glad we all enjoy it for now. What gives out first, Wardlow's ponytail or Bob's knees? Can't wait for Bob to take a shot from the chairman. I think there he is. He said, y'all can go to hell. How very American of him. Wait, did Bob just expose that he was that guy that told me to go to hell on Twitter? Seems bad. Bob, an investigation is underway. Just seen that Jay Shell was dunked on Impact from the time that we've been on the air. Seems bad. Bob and Jack Swagger doing We the People would rule. There you go. Bob in a knees off with Tall Paul. Bob's winning that one. poor Paul, man. His things are at like 10 and 2 o'clock. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. God bless him. Remember when he signed for AEW? That's a pop. Bob is a lights off debut. And they just don't turn him back on. Tremendous. Knee brace on a pole match. Bob, the All-American, American. Good stuff. I think Twitter would react to that stuff today because that wasn't long ago, but it feels like a different world almost, you know? Be interesting, wouldn't it? I mean, I know people didn't like it then, to be clear. I'm not doing that thing where I pretend that no one had opinions before 2018. I'm just saying, it's an interesting thought. I've been sent a screenshot. Can't read that one out. Okay. Who has better knees, Bob O'Neill or Nixon Newell? Come on now. Let's not be mean. We're not, you know. It's one Tall Paul, he can take the licks. He's made enough money. Poor Nixon, I'm not gonna be mean. Bob versus Paul White here. Whose hip gives out first match? I think Bob wins that one too. Bob joins the House of Black. Are we thinking face paint for that one or a mask? Because I think you'd have to kind of, because he would emasculate Brody King. He wouldn't look like a tough guy anymore next to Bob. Cowboy hat. Oh, now this is interesting. Bob in a cowboy hat and his emerging handlebar mustache would be an incredible heel wrestling manager aesthetic. So you went manager with it. I was thinking more world champion, but I know where you're coming from. We all know that if Bob debuted on AEW, they would go on hiatus and he would kill the territory like ROH. I still can't believe that. That was incredible. God bless everyone. Like, people lost their gigs. So I don't want to hammer that one home too much, but that was truly an extraordinary piece of business. He tweeted about it the day before. An absolute all-timer. Cowboy hat and face paint for House of Black. That's layered. I appreciate having good stuff. If they get a big bag fine, kind of think Shane and Keith saying F no to Tony would be the deserved outcome over the discourse, shushing, and deflection coming from that company. The Shane Taylor one is interesting because Shane, and it's Khan in the group who's worked dark, right? Moses hasn't worked, Khan has. And there's not even been like any talk about any of that stuff happening, right? He looks like he's trying to get into Impact. So hopefully he does, because if he wants to get there, God bless him. But interesting. That act is like really fun, and I think that could actually be very valuable. As for Keith, I think is more to your point. It feels like he will have a choice in where he goes, right? So there you go. Okay, let me. A mask with his face showing around the outside. My God. Bob comes out with a cowboy hat and the national anthem playing in the back while he does the bushwhackers walk. He would struggle with that. It'd be very tough on his knees. Any guesses on what Danhausen does tonight, or would you rather ignore this issue entirely? He'll show up at some point. I don't know. Bob bumps into Jamie Hayter backstage and she just headbutts him during picture-in-picture. Good stuff. Yeah, I have to be very, very legitimately, and like, I think, this is a Patron bit, but I'll talk about it because it's funny. There's a lot of times where I say stuff where I know what I'm alluding to, and I'm trying to frame Bob in a way where he's going to dunk on himself. If you watch the show, you know that. I can honestly say that I did not mean that anywhere near the direction that Bob took it. And I'll probably try to avoid under a hood as wrestling vernacular moving forward. Are you high on Nixon? I think she's a nice baby face to have on the roster. I've never seen quite the top tier money that other people have, But that doesn't mean it isn't possible, right? So I think I think she's very valuable. I'll be honest. I don't know if AEW is the promotion that like makes the most sense for her in terms of booking and placement. But it will probably be the one that makes the most sense in terms of money and exposure. So if that's where she ends up, well, how? Bob and American Flag Zubars. Oh my goodness. Adam Cole will beat the shit out of Danhausen. Wow, that would be an interesting kind of conflict for me to tackle. I think Bob would bear on commentary, less impact on his knees. I love this is just kind of Bob show, now fair. Well, Bob goes to the ring on an old WrestleMania cart to save his knees. Yeah, someone says on Discord, it might be you, Franco. Andrade buying Danhausen and thinking he's Darby is amazing. Bob would do DDP stalk. Yeah, I'm going to leave that one. Are there any free agents, minus Buddy Matthews, that AEW got you'd book straight to the world title? No, and that includes Buddy Matthews. I know you were joking, but no, I think at this point there's not a free agent in the world that you would put in that slot. I think there's a lot of guys I would try and do the TNT title. Namely Swerve would be the best example of that, I would say. But I don't think so. That roster's stacked, man. I think there's a lot of guys that are going to be waiting a long time for the world title stuff. It's a very different promotion now than it was a couple of years ago, you know? I don't think we get any surprises tonight because of Kendrick. Hopefully we do see Danhausen. Yeah, I think it's hard because a lot of the time it's just kind of bad luck. I mean, look at Kenta, right? Kenta was getting injured every other month, and he's not had any real problems until now. And the only reason he has a problem now is because he did that insane match with Tanahashi. So, yeah. Key five book for the world title. I'm not as high, but my main concern with Keith, even if I was, is the inactivity. I think you got to give him time to get his legs under him first. Yeah, Andrade's great for sure. Oh yeah, you're a Bulls fan. Didn't mention that ever, Bob. Yeah, exactly. Like Kenta getting injured after that match is not an injury-prone thing. That is instead a good lord. It's an empty Tokyo Dome, brother. Take it easy situation. Do you think we will ever see Tanahashi versus Danielson in AEW, or will that be in Japan? I would say Japan. It's a very good question. I think the real answer, and I'm sure you would agree, is that hopefully we see it, right? I think we're both pretty confident. Seems like Danielson has his kind of list of guys he wants to work, so fired up. Yes, that match did, bro. Dukes, please do not encourage Bob O'Neill. I've warned you about this before, both privately and publicly. I'll do it here again with 78 people watching for some reason. Please do not encourage, and that goes for all of you actually, please do not encourage Robert O'Neill, who has been fined once again for his presence in this live chat. Yeah. I wish they had a real crowd for that. You're right, Reese. Shame. Tanahashi, man. Remember they did the tease of Dynamite? I hope that comes up eventually. Like, I know there's a lot of factors why they couldn't. I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying, good lord. He's so great. Tanner Moxley happens in AEW and sets up Tanner Bryan in Japan. There you go. Yeah, I would agree. They're the two top guys on the big board, right, in terms of free agency. I mean, the biggest star in free agency is Joe, but he's obviously an age and a point in his life where he wouldn't be a world title guy. He's definitely a guy you bring in a big program. I mean, the obvious one being Punk. So, yeah. What would your card look like for AEW's first ever stadium show? It would have to be something especially up and down the card. Well, I think you immediately look at a guy like a main event. Like, I'll just give you. It's very hard because it depends on the time, right? But I'll give you a couple main event matches that immediately jump off as being like mega. CM Punk versus Bryan Danielson. CM Punk versus Kenny Omega. CM Punk versus John Moxley. I talked about this on the Grin. This is where I think it takes time with a guy like Hangman. He's like, him and Punk feels very big, but not as big as those to me, which I think is just my brain getting used to like him being one of the top guys in the industry. Doesn't mean he isn't. It just means it takes some time for it to feel like a mega match to me. Omega Okada 5 is a good one. But Punk feels like the immediate, like, that's the one that I immediately go to is like, okay, who's working Punk? Because with Punk, he has a unique dynamic where a lot of these matches are genuine dream matches. And that's not a slight on anyone else. He was away for 7 years, right? It is what it is. It's all circumstantial. Good Lord, JJ. You're becoming a very bitter soul, my friend. You may need to not only be fined, but suspended, which is a real shame. Then we'll have to promote these shows for ourselves, which seems bad. Turner versus Danielson seems huge. Yeah, I would say they're two of my top 5 wrestlers ever, so indeed, that's a big one. First stadium shows when you do all in 2 and cross promote like crazy. I think it's fair, but like the problem is you need to get guys on the actual, like there's so many guys on your roster that you need to feature, right? So it's so hard. But yeah, I generally agree with the idea that it needs to feel kind of larger than life and something like you couldn't see on any other show. Punk Joe, Omega Okada, Danielson, Gresham. Jesus. Fair. Okada, Hangman, and title versus title match. Omega, Danielson 2. Cody versus Helmsley, pop. For a stadium show, you need to prioritize the attractions. Right, you definitely would need. Do you think Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr. would be a big enough main event for the Craven Cottage show? See, this is where maybe I'm like. Maybe I'm wrong on this, okay? But my take is that at this point, wrestling is very much in a situation where a few cases aside, the brand is the draw. So, like, Zack Sabre Jr. is probably not a big enough name in terms of like nationally to sell out a stadium. But if AEW runs a stadium, right, there's a pretty good chance they sell it out regardless. Which is kind of the argument we always used to dunk on the Fed, but I don't. It feels like brands are more important than ever. I'm sorry not to answer your question there, old school gamer. I don't know if like whatever main events that shows draw in the house, you know, it feels like they're going to announce it. If they get the right kind of buzz, they're just going to sell it out. And it's just me, but I mean, obviously it's a great match, but I don't know if that would be its kind of purpose anyway. On the Omega Okada talk, do you think AEW gets that match first, or does New Japan want it to happen? I mean, I assume AEW is the place for that because it's just happened in New Japan, you know? And it's fired back at JJ. JJ's been owned. We're saving it. That's good shit. I like that. Is Okada or Tanahashi a bigger draw in the year? It's probably Okada. Those matches with Omega are iconic among wrestling nerds. Meaning me, that wasn't me being, spiteful. Also, you run Andrade and Gargano back as the opening match just for the pop. I hope they actually do that, man. Like when as soon as they get the chance, they just do that match because those two dudes were just made for each other. AEW has such a good roster now that a cross promotion show would almost seem small time compared to concentrate on their own thing. Even New Japan matches, that's my kind of where I'm at too. They have a monster roster, guys. I mean, sit down at some point if you really want to be a big old nerd about it. Like, sit yourself down and book a dream card for AEW. Keep it in-house, totally. Pick the strongest card you can do and see how many people you end up being like, oh shit, who am I going to put this 10th match? It's very difficult. Is Tanahashi versus Cena the biggest dream match that will never happen? I mean, depends on perspective. And it isn't really one for me because I appreciate Cena and I respect what he did, but he's just not in that. He's not someone that I have like, oh, that's a dream match for me. I can kind of imagine that it would be like all the other big Cena matches and he would do the AA 4 times. But in terms of like marquee, I get the appeal for sure. Omega versus Cole and Punk and Danielson versus the Bucks. I like that tag match a lot. I think that's a really big one. that they will do at some point. The confirmed shoot says cottage show would only be like 25,000 too. They'll fill it with a relatively normal show. Yeah, to be honest, I think that's almost a different thing to like. I think Christian's initial question, he can say if I'm wrong here. Like, I think he was imagining the big time US stadium show because the UK feels like a different thing because the novelty of them never being here will be a factor with that. So there you go. I think it's hard to say, man. I'm sorry if I kind of dismissed your question because it's a good one. It's very hard to say because to wrestling nerds, he's obviously a big deal, but it also wouldn't surprise me if Zack Sabre Jr. wrestled at like just a Rev Pro show in front of a few hundred people. So he's certainly not like famous, you know, but that doesn't necessarily mean he can't still at stadium. I'm getting wrestling Bryan Danielson for AEW. There's a lot of wrestling nerds can come out pretty strong for that stuff. Factual. Unique circumstance, though, with people waiting so long for it to get here. Headline with Okada Omega or Okada Danielson with Punk Tanahashi as the semi-main. See, if you were doing that, you would be framing the Craven Cottage show. You could frame as like a neutral ground for such a thing. Like Ring of Honor used to do War of the Worlds. You could do that, and the idea would be that, you know, we're not going to do it in America, we're not going to do it in Japan, we're going to do it in London, in Craven Cottage. And New Japan's pretty popular here. Obviously, they sold out the Copper Box before, which is like 7,000 tickets, which, I mean, that's nothing to be sniffed at, right? So, and obviously, as you said, you got Zack Sabre Jr. There's some guys that will get huge reactions in the UK. I've seen it, so. Yeah, the AEW roster is definitely stronger. I agree with this. And that Fred was pretty fun, too. You think we'll ever get a two-night AEW event like we get with Wrestle Kingdom WrestleMania? I don't know. It's very, I think they're both, you know, particular circumstances. What is your dream match that will never happen? Mine is Brett versus Bryan. Mine is probably... I'm going to go with 2005 Samoa Joe versus 1992 Stan Hansen. Which is definitely not a match that I just came up with off the top of my head and has popped me huge. Definitely not. Wrigley Field for All Out with Punk versus Page for the title would be plausible this year, honestly. I don't think they will do it, but I think they'd do fine. That feels like the natural. If you're going to do a stadium, it feels like Chicago in the summer feels like the play, right? Do you ever see AEW doing a show in Japan? I do. I actually wouldn't be surprised if they did TV there, to be totally honest. Do you remember when WWE did TV there in like 2005? They did like a SmackDown there. Strange. Could you ever see one of the Saturday hour specials being used entirely for AEW's first Gauntlet match? I think it'd be a great thing to experiment with for viewership. I really do. I don't think it will happen, to be honest, Josh, but we kicked around a little bit the other day, and I think it's a really cool idea. Punk was talking about wrestling Bryan in Wrigley Field when it happens. There you go. Have a good night, pal. Brett versus Gresham. My God. Brett would like probably have a weird take on Gresham and say that he looks like he's dancing and stuff, and he'd like insult him. It'd be weird. But yeah, the match would be good. Lesnar versus Brett is a dream that's a good one. Especially because you'd assume that Brock would be like in the place he was at where he worked AJ and where he worked Bryan. That'd be something. I remember when poor Jeremy booked that on TW and he'd like a 75 and he got really mad and we just quit the game. We sat in silence and quit the game. It's tremendous. Brett versus Tanahashi. There you go. AEW UK show, obviously headlined by Kip's Fair. Kip versus CM Punk. Yeah, that's fair. Sorry, folks. But I'm going to do about another 5 to 10 minutes here, okay? So, any final... I know this has been mostly Q&A, but you get what you get, I suppose. Do you ever want to go to Japan and watch a wrestling show? Damn, man, absolutely. Huge one for me is go Tokyo Dome. And Korakuen too. Ideally you'd do both, right? But Tokyo Dome's a big one. I think every wrestling fan can kind of at least somewhere in their heart they can find the intention or the hope to go to Tokyo Dome. It's a special building, man. One of the most iconic places in wrestling history. So is Korakuen for that matter. Brock versus Vader. This one rules so much. But I never can shake the feeling that like Vader would just punch Brock once and Brock would just beat the shit out of him. Which I mean, and honestly, fair. That make it more of a dream match in some ways. Joe versus Quada. This one isn't even. What's nuts about that is, I think I've talked about this on the Grin. Let me find the date on this. Hang on a second. This isn't even like a nuts fault because Joe wrestled Misawa in 2007. He wrestled Misaru Misawa, and they had a strange match because the Japanese crowds, I am sorry to say, kind of thought Joe was doing a bit with all of his Four Pillars tribute spots. So, like, if you watch the match, like, they don't really take him seriously, which is interesting for a range of reasons. Kawada is stylistically a more easy one to imagine, but I just thought I'd bring that up. I don't know why. There you go. Do Punk and Danielson what we got here? Sorry. Do Punk versus Danielson for the title all out at Wrigley Field with Punk coming out with a full 96 balls intro. God bless. Bam Bam versus Mox, King versus Kobashi, Brian versus Misawa. There you go. Brett versus Ray, Kip versus Gogo. You get what you get. Okada and Meg would sell out anywhere in Japan. Absolutely. Brock versus Umaga is a great one. See, I could see that being more gelling more, right? Chances Kip's box head gimmick ever gets over, slim. And I mean, I don't mean that of like, hey, it is what it is, right? Osaka, dude, that may be the coolest looking wrestling venue in the whole damn world. Google that, folks, if it's unfamiliar to you. Joe, I don't know if you're a lucha fan, but I hope someday you get to come to a big show in Mexico. I'm not. And, honestly, that's one of my biggest blind spots that I hope to remedy at some point. I think we all have them, but I'm slightly embarrassed by how little I know about Lucha Libre. I need to watch more. That would be a hell of an experience. So, yeah, I just need to. I need to watch more. Maybe we should do a show of Oracle about that. He's very, very tapped in, not to the current scene so much, but historically, he's got a pretty good understanding of the Lucha Libre scene. Kingston versus Kawada. My God. Hager vs. Wardlow in an MMA fight rematch is both the greatest dream match that will never happen and what the main event of AEW's first stadium show needs to be. Umaga vs. Fatu. Lawrence Taylor versus Bad Bunny. Antoine says, if AEW ever did a Royal Rumble of some sort, how would you book it? I'm not ducking your question here, but I think we should do this as a separate deal because I kind of think this would be a good group show. But like how we kind of on the TEW thing did the booking committee, I kind of would like us to sit around and figure it out and piece by piece. I haven't actually pitched that to anyone yet, and Shoot might be in the chat and may say it sucks, but it's interesting. I mean, there's certain set pieces that I can think of off the top of my head, but I would actually like to try and sit down and construct that match because it's kind of fascinating. You could do so many different dynamics, right? Maybe that'd be a Grin segment. I don't know. I appreciate the question, though, Antoine, very much. Is it fair to say that Kip Sabian isn't very good? I think he's fine. He's not very good, no. But you get what you get, I suppose. Factual. That's a great dream match. Again, it'd be a matter of what mood Brock's in, but it would certainly be awesome. Jack Crosby versus the concept of Major League Wrestling. He gets so mad. Doesn't he? Good Lord. I actually have a playlist. I know this is on there, but I have a playlist. Oracle gave me like 2-3 matches. And I watched them and I was in that kind of zone where I'd watched too much wrestling. I wasn't sure what was good and what was bad anymore. Very sad. I'll get to it eventually. I appreciate the suggestion. If AEW ever did a Royal Rumble, I'm starting with Omega and Okada. Omega and Danielson was my initial, but yeah, that works too. Everyone picks the first two Final Four Iron Man. Yeah, like that kind of thing. I can see a world in which we piece it together and it's a mess because no one understands what we're talking about. But if we constructed such a show in the right way, it could be it could be quite a fun booking session playing out in real time, you know? Bob versus Shoot for the AEW Stadium show. Both gonna have to get some juice for that one, folks. I would pay top dollar for a Shoot and Jack watch MLW. I'll triple my Patreon pledge. Okay, Franco asked for it. It does feel a fitting response. God bless him. There he is. See, now this takes the overlay off, but I've learned, and I now put it back on. Very smart. Starting off with Darby and Punk will be wild. Bob O'Neill versus Brock Anderson based off Bob hating. There's another. He was real mean about Brock, man. There's no need for that. Brock's fine. I think Grand Metalik has a spot in the fleet. I'm sure that Bryan Danielson would like to wrestle him. So, yeah. I'm not like. I think at this point, with the way that signings have worked out, it's really hard to guess who and like why and where. But like, is he talented enough? And we can all agree, yes. He's damn good, right? So, Jack Crosby, question mark, factual. Christian, I think that would be very fun. I don't think there's any chance in the world that we get Jack Crosby to do that because he's very professional. Sometimes he has to do real things in real life like a coward. But, folks, that's it. You know what? Hang on. Mr. JJ, head of PR, has been fined and suspended immediately. This is not being delayed to the end of this stream. He has been fined and suspended as of right now. Shoot has said, Christian, why do you hate him? Which is tremendous. JJ, we'll later discuss your wage upon return. It will be docked quite dramatically. Please contact Bob O'Neill if you have any issues with this. Good luck. Okay, what else we got here before I wind down? Pac versus Danielson is a low-key big match for me personally. Pac is the most underrated guy in AEW, in my opinion. Listen, that's one of those deals where I don't connect with him in a huge way, but I legitimately can't argue with what you're. I mean, he in ring can do everything, and him and Danielson would almost certainly be incredible. So fair. All right. As we see the chat here reacting to the shocking news of JJ's suspension, indefinite suspension. Joe's gotten really tight with the money ever since the great Patreon crash. Man, there's this deal on Patreon, and Sean talks about it. End of every month when like people's stuff declines, it drops. And anyone that has a Patreon, the first time they see it, they're like, oh my God, I run off 20 people. And it isn't the case. It's just people's things declining. But yeah. He's still a mod. Well, Bob's our legal man, so he'll be changing that shortly. Feel they're on verging on waiting too long for the Christian Cage term. Do you think they'll pull the trigger soon? I'll be honest, man. I actually agree with your assessment here. I don't know if they should have won those tag belts, and I think they're actually doing a nice job. There's not a slight on them. I just don't know if that's where I'd have gone with it. It doesn't mean it's wrong or right. For me, I don't know. I have an idea for a late night Grin halftime show like MLW did. That's good stuff. That was hilarious. Dave's head hovering. Hat rolled. Okay, we're about 120 here. Nate, have a good evening. I'm actually on hiatus from action figures. I got very, very dangerously excessive, and people started sending me stuff. So then, like, my space got filled up, and I was like, I've got to take some time. I'll get Eddie Kingston when he comes out, but other than that, I'm on hiatus. Please do not contact me about action figures moving forward. I feel like it's going to be a short tag run. I do too. I don't know. I just look. It's fine. I'm not saying it's like a terrible thing or anything. Oh my god, there's like a ringing. That's very scary. I'm not saying it's like a terrible mistake or anything. I probably would have gone elsewhere with the belts. That's all. Is Pentagon the coolest wrestler in AEW? He pops me every time. Andrade, Penta. I'd say that's the. I think they're the league leaders. No, Akash Sharma, you could not get a shout out. Akash Sharma of Hip Hop and More cannot get a shout out. Absolutely not. Immediately broke the rule here, Dragon King. But yes, I did it ruled. This is true. Good question. Good point, Josh. Folks, if you want to be part of our Discord, which I would say is pretty good, it isn't toxic. It's nice conversations about professional wrestling. People are a little bit mean to me on there, but you get what you get. DM me on Twitter or on Patreon, and I'll give you a link. When you click through on said link, you will not immediately be able to see everything. I have to give you the permission. I don't actually know how to set that as a default. So you get what you get, I suppose. I just broke, didn't I? The reason I do not just put it in the chat is because by tomorrow, 400 people have watched this. And some of them, I can tell you based on my DMs, are very bad. So Brock Anderson is the coolest wrestler in AEW because Bob hates him. Fair. I looked at this Streamlab thing. I don't really understand how it works. Franco. I know I should set that up, but you get what you get. Absolutely not. Especially after I cancelled you today. Definitely not. Okay, folks. On that note, as my friend buries me, we're going to do something very special. I'm not going to leave cold. I'm going to give everyone a chance to ask their final questions. There's only one way to do that. I think you know where I'm going here. See, the delay is such that it doesn't really work. Partly because most of you just pop for the countdown and forget to ask any questions, but also, I'm going to be totally transparent with you, Demon Grin. You're not alone. This actually legitimately does upset me too. I could promise you, Josh, I certainly do not give a damn about a bad reputation. I wish I did. Much like the rowdy one. Don't give a damn about, brother. Is Ronda lousy? Yes. It's a good one, Reese. I'm glad I like that you're proud of that one. I cannot currently go to hell. No, I cannot. Though I am indeed fat boy. Can you acknowledge that Shoot is the smartest member of the Grim for not watching the Rumble? Shoot's, look, he's got experience, right? He's the veteran. He's got a lot of years on all of us, he knows what he's doing. Follow Shoot's lead on these things. It definitely wasn't a subtle burial. There was a great moment on the Grin last week, for those of you that watched the Late Night Grin, the world famous Late Night Grin at latenightgrin.com, where I said to Shoot, man, he just said about how old you are, and Shoot got hot at me and was like, "What do you want me to say? I'm young. I am old." and then I think Shoot said, "Watch it, son." All right, folks. This has been your Dynamite Preview. I'd like to end these with enough time that everyone has a chance to watch it that didn't catch it live. I'm going to go out on this visual because this feels fitting after the show I've had today. I hope you have a wonderful evening. I'll be back in about 3.5 hours. when I and the Oracle of Wrestling, I believe Oracle's joining me because he's very fired up for Punk and MJF. We're going to review Dynamite here on this very channel for free. This Wednesday thing is going to be a full-time thing, folks. Pre-show, preview, review, Dynamite. So we appreciate all the support. The viewership tonight has been great. Appreciate everyone in the chat contributing. Yeah. We'll speak soon. Very soon, in fact. Oh, how.